Hey, everybody. Welcome to another MarketScale weekly webinar. I'm your host, Tim Maitland, Chief Revenue Officer here at MarketScale. And we couldn't be more excited to be putting on these weekly webinars. You know, these are meant to be fun. They're meant to be light, and they're really meant to be the essence of community, right? If you think about it, community is a place where you go when you want to celebrate. Community is a place you go where you need support, where you need help. And MarketScale, we have a vision for B2B, and that vision is truly taking kind of very traditional, technical, dry, boring B2B world that we live in and transform it to being really more community driven. So this is a weekly webinar that we put on where we just talk about, hey, what is a community? How do you truly build and engage a community? And by doing so, what does that really unlock for your business? So I'm excited that you're here. Feel free to bring your friends to this. Feel free to invite whoever you want. And today we also have a special guest. Ben Thomas is going to be joining us. Ben is personally one of the best that I've seen at building a community within his niche of Pro AV. So we're going to learn a little bit from him. We're going to challenge him a little bit on some of the questions that people might have as they're trying to have a more community engaged approach to how they go to market. So let's go ahead and jump in, and we're going to talk about how you truly scale your communities. So when you look at the world of traditional marketing that exists right now, it doesn't work. I'm going to be blunt. It doesn't work because you have the outlets that we've done for centuries, really. You have advertising. Advertising is way too commoditized. It's way too expensive. And it's really just not a fan-first way of going to market. If you think about yourself, what's the worst moment when you try to watch YouTube with your family? What's the worst moment when you're watching that big game? It's when an ad pops up. So as a business, why do you want to engage your customers with the same nuisance that you don't want to engage with in your personal life? And that's a struggle that advertising has right now. You look at changing buyers. We used to live in a world where buyers wanted to see the CEO in that, tie, and those executives in the corner offices talking about their company. It has evolved. That has changed, right? When we're making a purchasing decision, whether it's in our personal life or whether it's in, our profession, we want to see ourselves in the product. We want to see people just like us who are sharing their insights, who are inspiring us to take that step to elevate our career or whatever it might be. So our buyers have changed because they don't want that top-down messaging. They want more of that peer-to-peer communication. You look at trade shows. Trade shows are phenomenal for community building because where else can you take a fireball shot with your dealers, or where else can you shake the hand of that CEO you've wanted to meet? But it's not scalable, right? It's 20,000 for this show. It's 100,000 for this show. It's 500,000 for that show. And you have to play station to station. And community, it's not a station-to-station thing, right? Community is an everyday thing, and trade shows just aren't really as impactful as they used to be. You have your customers, right? Customers have shrinking attention spans. Your buyers aren't the same buyers that you used to have. Majority of buyers actually in the workforce now are millennials, and they're used to engaging with short snippet content, right? User-generated content. So your customers have a different viewpoint of how they want to be engaged. And kind of lastly, you have market uncertainty. We live in this time where, is there a recession coming? Are we booming? Are we busting? We don't know. So we always have to be able to be mindful of how we're spending our money and our resources. And when you focus on a community and when you focus on digital, it's a lot more scalable, a lot more affordable than a lot of the traditional. So as we kind of keep moving on here, we believe that the best companies in the world engage their communities. And this great businesses and great brands that are truly doing that. When you think about community, when you hear the word community, it's really made up of everybody in your business, right? Community is your audience. It's your customers. It's your prospects. It's your manufacturers reps, your dealers, your distributors. It's your employees and the new hires that you want to bring in. And what the best companies in the world do is they say, hey, you know what? This is our community, and this is who we really need to unlock the voices And we need to take these experts within our community and we need to turn them into true content creators. And that's the mission today. That's what B2B is really trying to lead, and that's what B2B is trying to drive. Now, you look at fun companies in our personal life that we might enjoy, right? You look at a company like Yeti. Yeti is, I think, an anomaly because in the end, they are a cooler, right? Manufacture coolers, they manufacture cups, and it's really that's what it is. Now, when you think about it, how can somebody drive $100,000 Escalade or Suburban and essentially wreck it by putting a Yeti decal on their back window or on the bumper? Right? They're putting a cooler company on their $100,000 car. And it's because what Yeti does, right? Yeti opens up this community of outdoor enthusiasts. When I go to a University of Texas football game and I walk into that tailgate with that Yeti and it's stacked with cold beer, all conversation happens around the Yeti. All community happens around the Yeti, right? It's not a cooler at that point. It's an experience. It's community. And Yeti has done such a great job in building that with their products, and they do so by unlocking the voices of the community. There's a really fun video here that I'll show you, and then we're going to bring it back to B2B. But this video, there was a gentleman. He was having a huge day on the lake. He's here in Texas, Hitchcock, Texas. But Richard E. is having a big day on the lake, probably a little bit too big because his boat burned down, catches on fire. And really nothing is salvageable, right? The boat is gone. However, the Yeti survives, right? And when he opens the Yeti, what's in there? Cold beer, right? The party lives on. The boat is gone. The people are gone, but the party continues. And this video is just user generated, right? It's somebody on the lake sharing it. And it shows the power of the product. It shows the durability that they say. And it's not this big polished video that is going to, wow the socks off of anybody, but it's somebody just like me or you who's able to see a user having a good time that Yeti brings and the durability of their cooler that they talk about. And that's the power of it. So in B2B, it's really no different, right? You need to find your experts and you need to unlock their voices, right? Take the people of your company, the sales team, the engineers, the executives, and make it easier for them to become content creators. We have a couple examples here, that we can show on the B2B side, and we'll click into, micro drones. But, micro drones is a very technical company. They manufacture massive drones. Some of them are literally 6 feet wide, and they use them for surveying and mapping, and they'll do projects all around the world. But what's unique about them is instead of always doing that big polished video, they'll celebrate their community. This is an employee spotlight where they take a micro drones team member and he talks about his passion for survey and mapping, how he got into droning, what he wants to continue to do with his career. And what micro drones knows is that by creating this authentic content and letting it be user generated, how much authenticity are they bringing to their brand, right? How much trust are they bringing to their brand because they're showing the people behind the business. And that's what every company can do. Technetics is another example doing that. When Technetics will go to a trade show, they don't just go to the trade show and shake hands for 2 to 3 days. They'll allow the team members who are at the show to create content. So in this example, Jason Riggs, he heads up their aerospace team. He just walks around with his iPhone. He gets a couple shots of the sights and sounds of the event. He hops in front of the camera and just says, hey, I had such a nice time engaging with the MRO community. These were the highlights. This is what I'm excited about and where the industry is headed forward. And we're just excited to be a part of it. And again, instead of having this big agency production and all these elements, they empowered Jason Riggs to create that content himself. And now the community can engage that and Technetics can have their brand everywhere. So the essence of this is really technology making it simple, right? Everybody knows how to do it. Everybody knows what to do. You just need the technology to make it easy. So we're going to kind of change the conversation here, and we're going to bring in, our expert guest. We have Ben Thomas. He is the head of Pro AV Today, one of the AV's leading podcast shows, and I think one of the best community builders that I have Ben, thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm great, Tim. Thanks for bringing me on today.
Yeah. So, obviously you do a nice job of building community, and you know what it means to be an expert yourself, but knowing that your community doesn't always just want to hear from you, right? They don't want that top down. So, in your words, how would you define, what does building a community mean to you, and how do you go about doing that every day?
Yeah, well, I think Pro AV is a good example, right? When you look at the AV community, especially in a post-COVID world, one of the challenges that we run into is we're we have so many different verticals that we
Yeah.
work in, right? So
Hmm.
I might be somebody who knows a lot about broadcast technologies or venue installations and things like that. But there are people in my community that either don't know or maybe don't care as much. So I have to build communities inside each of those verticals, right? Education technology is a perfect example as a sub community in AV, where you've got shows like TCEA, you've got shows like ISTE that historically haven't been serviced super well by the AV community. But there are people in there, and
Yeah.
I'll use this example because I know her well. Carly Soleil over at BenQ, right? She does a really good job of engaging her ed tech communities, right? The teachers, the IT managers. So I think it's important to define communities, right? Because it's easy to assume that your community is either your internal employees
Sure.
or maybe your direct reports or maybe even just your customer base. But it's so much deeper than that. It's the end users, it's the dealers, distributors, manufacturers, and it just continues to go deep, deep, deep. And it's important to define that community and know that that community exists a lot deeper than you think it might.
No, you're sure right. When you look at how you want to engage with your community, what I like to talk with companies about is personal life to business life, right? I know for myself, I know for you, I imagine most people watching, when you're in your personal life, the way you engage with your community, you talk about the shows that you're watching, right? And you connect on that. You tune into podcasts, you might share those podcasts with your friends. If you want to get excited about something, if you want to learn something, you'll go into YouTube. A user just like yourself will teach you. And the way that people are learning today is totally different. And it's because they want to see themselves. They want to learn from somebody just like themselves. Sometimes marketers, for example, in conversations that I have, is they have that vision. And they say, look, I would love nothing more than to get my engineer to be on a podcast to speak about our products. I would love nothing more than that end user client to come on and share their insight. However, my engineer is a little bit awkward and my user is a little bit tight-lipped. What do you say to that marketer that, might have that kind of stronghold and that being a challenge or a barrier?
Yeah, a really, really easy answer. In their everyday lives, people are already creating content about things they're passionate about, right? Whether that's their grandkids' soccer game or the new Traeger grill that they just got that they
Mhm.
want to teach people how to make, a brisket on, things like that. People are already doing that. And I think ignoring that is a massive miss that B2B's had, right? And obviously, there are technological hurdles that
Yeah.
people have to jump through, and that's fine and great. But the idea that our communities don't have something to say and aren't willing to say these things is the largest miss that we've had in B2B. So by making it simple, by literally asking these people in some cases, people want to contribute, people want to be able to teach and to train. Literally, it's as simple as just asking these people to do it sometimes because they care about it. It's a life that they've lived in many cases for 30, 40 years. So they're true experts. You just got to ask them for it sometimes.
It's true, and you look at it, you look at these B2B podcasts, and it's pretty amazing, right? You have people of all, shapes and sizes and all different backgrounds, lending their voice, right? Because that's the common thing, right? They have a voice, they have expertise. Let a podcast or let video sound bites be a platform that allows them to unlock it. My thought with the engineers, and you can, correct me if you're wrong, or if I'm wrong, or even other stance. You know, Personally, if I'm looking to make a purchasing decision, like let's say it's a SaaS solution that's going to help the market scale sales team, I kind of want that quirky solution engineer because I know that they know the product better than anybody. I know that they were probably the mind that built it. And that authentic conversation or knowledge that they can share, I think that's going to be a lot more empowering to me as a buyer compared to that polished sales guy or the CEO who's kind of the face of the company.
Well, I mean, you're right. It's about authenticity,
Yeah.
right? And I'll go back to the Traeger example, right? Because that's one of my favorite examples, and actually how I learned to smoke meat. Uh, I would rather watch a video from Tommy in Texas than the CEO of Traeger about how to cook meat, right? I think for so long in B2B, we've relied on this top down approach of, oh, I've got to have a figurehead and he can be the only person who can give approved messaging, or he's the only person qualified and knows he's been media trained and knows what he can speak about. And we've neglected these people that are the people on the ground, are the engineers, are the literal smartest minds in the company. And that reminds me, we literally just had a guy submit a soundbite, I think about a month or two ago. His name is Myron. He's a truck driver. And it's the least polished thing you can ever imagine, but that generated more hits than any piece of content that organization had done, right? And that for me is the ultimate tell. People want to hear from other people, and we can take it back to the sales side too. And when you look at uh, where sales is now, people
Yep.
don't buy from companies, people buy from people. So the more that you humanize and the more that you are leveraging your internal communities and obviously external communities, the more you're going to humanize the company. And the natural trickle down for that is more trust, more authenticity, and hopefully at the end of the day, more sales, more revenue.
I love that because people truly do buy. I think that's evolved. Probably, I think COVID probably expedited it because we got more used to meetings and user generated content. What would you say to marketer, business owner, doesn't matter who says yes, but we have $100 million company. We have to be on brand with everything. It has to be polished. It has to be technically right. The idea of having a sales guy with an iPhone walking around a show is a little bit terrifying because it's not going to meet the quality of our product. Is there some sort of centralization that needs to happen in regards to approval or making sure message is on brand, or is it the Wild West? Just let everybody get out there.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously there's got to be, I hate to use the word gatekeeping, right? But at the end of the day, there are people who, like, you can't just go and announce a partnership before it happens, right? And shameless plug, but like tools like MarketScale Studio are designed with B2B in mind, right? Where there are approvals, right? You send a request, you submit content, and then you have a chance to approve it before it goes public. And I think that's kind of the compromise, right? Where people feel empowered to create insights or uh, submit content, and then they can get feedback or approvals through maybe an approved third party. Sometimes that's legal. I get it. Those are hoops that we naturally. It feels like that's a natural, nice compromise. There's empowerment on one side. You're empowering someone to create content. You're empowering someone to take their iPhone out at a trade show and upload booth footage, right? And then eventually, obviously, that being posted and published with marketers' approval. It's that nice medium because you're able to kind of live in both worlds and empower people on both sides.
So speak a little bit too, about the buyers, right? If we, for example, go back to our personal life, if we read less in our personal life and we listen to more, right? I think podcasting is really kind of reading audiobooks too. You take a very technical company. I'm not going to name any names, but let's say you take a data center manufacturing solution. They manufacture the housing structures. It's a very technical conversation, and it's pretty dry, right? It's not the most fun. What do you think in regards to kind of marketers thinking, well, do people want to tune in and listen to an engineer talk about the future of data centers? Do people want to understand the nuances of what goes into a modular data center solution compared to a more centralized structure? What would you say on that?
Yeah, I use this example all the time. If I'm an underwater welder, there
Mm,
may be 300 underwater welders or manufacturing companies or even literal like boots on the ground welders. So my goal is more saturation than it is numbers, right? And I think that's the chase that people get lost in all the time. And I'm going to steal this advice from Mr. Beast, who I don't know if everybody
Mr.
knows who that
Beast.
is, but Mr. Beast said his number one piece of advice for all YouTube creators is don't pay attention to how many views you get on your first 10 videos because you're not going to get a lot, right? But the more that you can saturate and the more that you can teach and engage and reach people that are important to you, right? Whether it's half of the underwater welders that are out there in the world, that's what success is, right? Success isn't, 5 million views. I could probably create some hip trendy video on whatever the flavor of the month is today, and we could manufacture some views, but really that doesn't mean anything to my
Mm,
audience, right? So my biggest piece of advice to marketers would be there are audiences for conversation. right? And don't be afraid to make content for 100, 200 people, because if you can saturate that market, you're talking brand recognition, name recognition, but you're also teaching these people.
For
You
sure.
literally are moving the industry forward. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that I always love to say: focus on that quality, not the quantity of users, viewership off the bat.
No, I agree with that. And, if you think about it too, your example, you have 300 folks who can buy your product. It might be niche. Well, they're going to buy something, right? And they're going to buy from the company who's done the best job educating them. They're going to buy from the company who's done the best job allowing them to see themselves in the product. And sure, that triple 39A action air valve podcast might be a little bit dry, but it's not dry to that facility manager who's trying to spend $1 million in the right way because they want to know trust, right? And by having channels like podcast, episodic content, you'll allow to build that. So to kind of end on this, right? I think one of the hardest things for anybody, I know myself, is just kind of putting that foot forward, right? Saying, okay, look, I agree. I've got to pivot from advertising, and I still going to go to the shows, but I need to scale back. But I do agree that I have this thriving community, and they just need a platform. So I know how to build the podcast, like the actual channel. I know kind of who to speak, but where do I go from there, right? Where do I go from the mindset of, all right, I want to go community, and now I'm going to take my first step, and then I'm going to compound on that. What advice do you have? Because you've got one of the best podcasts in AV. So
Yeah, look, I mean, this is true in all life scenarios. 0 to 1 is the hardest transition, right? Not 1 to 100. 0 to 1 actually starting is the most difficult thing, because people don't know how, or maybe are too afraid, or don't want to start. It's as simple, literally, as if you see a relevant news story, or maybe you release a product, do a quick 20-second video. Just say, "Hey, this is so exciting! I had a chance to work on this product that we've been working on for 4 years. Be sure to check it out," and publish that. Right? That's a 0 to 1. That's something that you can build off of, right? And eventually, that turns into a weekly soundbite where you're talking about the new products that are happening in the industry, or
yep,
a show like mine, Pro AV Today, where we went from like barely a once a month cadence to now usually 2 to 3 times a week where we're publishing episodes, because we went from 0 to 1, right? Don't be afraid to, your 0 to 1 can look very, very crude, and it can be very, very authentic, and it can be very unpolished. But that's a great place to start, right? It's easy to build off of a one. It's much easier to build off of a one than it is from a zero.
and I think use the closest allies in your community,
Right.
right? If starting a podcast, I'm thinking, okay, right, which customer is a t-shirt fan, right? Who's wearing like a MarketScale t-shirt around the office? I'm gonna reach out to them. I'm thinking, hey, who is that person within our team that knows our solution better than anybody, and just needs a platform to share it? I'm going to go to them. I might even go to a friend outside of anything relevant to market scale, right? I might have a friend who has a really cool story, and I think it's something that my community needs to hear. I go to them, and then I think you can get the compounding, right, or the flywheel effect, a better way to put it, where you start with this person, you start with that person, you start with that person, naturally they start sharing your podcast. You have people liking it, commenting on it, and then it's just kind of free flowing, right? You have all these different community members that kind of can be the next man up, and it makes it easy.
Yeah, we have a saying internally. We like to ask people who their Michael Jordan is, right? Who's you look at Michael Jordan and what he did for Nike, and he was the best, probably the best brand ambassador they've ever had. But he was doing things that other people weren't, right? You have somebody probably on your internal team, or your sales team, or your HR team, who's a super fan or a power user of your product or your service, and that person just needs a little bit of unlocking, right? Give them a chance to create that content, and then you're right, the flywheel starts to happen, right? I always love to use this example. Whenever that person makes their first sale, people will start doing what they're doing pretty quick. Uh, when something starts to work, social proof is one of the best motivators for people. So it's one person starts to do it, and then people tend to join in.
It's so true. It's so true. Well, Ben, we appreciate your insight here to the community. Somebody who's done it, time and time again. Just a little plug for Pro AV today. What can we expect next? What's the next episode of content we can look forward to?
Yeah, we've got a few in the hopper. We've got a couple shows that we're covering, like ISE. Nice product placement for ISE that's in a couple weeks. I'll be out at Distributech. covering that show, but we've got some good conversations. Everything from is AI stealing your creative job, all the way to kind of a state of the union for the broadcast technology world. So, great voices coming on the show, and got some cool stuff in the hopper that can't wait for people to see.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait for it either. Thank you for joining us. And everybody, thank you for coming in and being a part of another episode of our weekly webinar. We can't wait to have you back next time. Bring your friends. Always feel welcome to jump into the chat and be a part of the community. But thank you very much. And let's allow the B2B world to continue to build community and engage one another. Until next week, have a great one, y'all.